好的，非常感谢大家的到来啊！您现在收看到的是中央电视台财经频道的对话的栏目和夏季达沃斯咱们共同主办的这样一场电视的论坛。那其实今天咱们谈论的这个话题呢，其实主要包含2个方面，一方面呢是全球化，另外一方面呢是包容性的增长。我们其实知道啊，全球化呢，在过去30年的这个时间里面呢，其实是为世界经济的这个增长呢带来了一个极大的动力。我们看到呢，不管是这个自由竞争的市场，还是看到像比如说贸易、人才以及资本的流动，以及科技的这样的一个发展，其实都让很多的这样的公司，他们可以在通过跨国的这样的一些商务的活动当中得到非常丰厚的回报。而且我们从全球看来啊，其实呢有无数的人在过去的这几十年的时间当中呢，因为全球化，他们得以走出了贫困。但是我们大家也都知道的一个事实，就是在最近的这些年，可能尤其是过去的这1年当中，全球化呢，因为很多种的因素面临了极大的一些挑战。所以说，其实今天我们所要探讨的是，当下我们全球化的进程究竟怎么样了？我们是不是有一种新的全球化的模式呢？大家可能还记得，在今年年初1月份，在瑞士的这个冬季达沃斯论坛上，国家主席习近平呢，当时在这个论坛的开幕式上，他的发言里面其实就是说，要让全球化的进程呢更加有活力、更加包容、更加可持续。那么，其实这样的一个可持续性和全球化本身，听起来可能存在一定矛盾的这样的一对，它可以真正的达到吗？我们究竟怎么样去达到呢？这也是我们今天要去讨论的。那其实今天我们场上呢也坐着其实非常棒的这样的一组嘉宾啊。我想首先给大家简单的介绍一下我旁边的这样的一些嘉宾。首先坐在我旁边的最近的这一位呢，其实也是咱们的一位老朋友了。那他是北京大学国家发展研究院的副院长教授黄一平教授，欢迎您。那么在旁边的这位啊，其实他也有一个中文名字啊，叫谢白曼先生 ，so Mr. Feike Sybesma。他是荷兰皇家蒂斯曼集团的董事长兼首席执行官 ，CEO and Chairman of the Managing Board of Royal DSM。Welcome。咱们坐在中间的这位呢是招商局集团的执行副总，那他同时也是中集集团的董事长，那么也是一位经济学家王洪先生，欢迎您。旁边的这一位啊，其实他也有一个中文名字，因为其实他的中文说得非常非常的好。其实我们在场下几乎是中文交流的，而且他几乎是可以用中文来回答问题的这样的一位，我们叫他夏先生啊。夏宗恩先生呢，他其实是克林顿柏林律师事务所的合伙人，那么他其实也是前美国助理贸易代表，所以说呢是这个贸易方面的一位专家，欢迎您。离我最远端的这一位呢是香港电讯云科有限公司的董事总经理施立伟先生 ，so we call him BG，welcome。其实今天大家可以看到这样的一个嘉宾的组成，其实有来自美国，有来自欧洲，有来自中国的，那有点像一个这个小型联合国了。而且大家的业务呢，其实不仅是在这3个区域，其实也是遍布全球了。而且既有来自学界的，也有来自企业的，同时呢，也有贸易方面的这样的专家。所以说呢，其实首先开始讨论呢，我想先从，因为既然讲全球化，我想先从咱们几位企业的代表开始啊。我其实首先想问一下王董。王董啊，其实我想问一下，身处在一线啊，因为我们知道，不管是从招商局来看，因为招商局肯定是这么面向全球的这样的一个集团，还是从这个中集来看，因为很多人说，集装箱的这个业务一直是全球贸易的一个风向标了。那么在过去的这半年的这个时间当中，其实我不知道您对于这个全球化的这方面，您有些什么样的一些感受？您觉得海外的这个业务增加了还是减少了？
这个总的这个中国的这个进出口贸易啊，应该是增长的比较快，今年上半年。那么它有几个原因呢？一个原因呢，应该说整个的这个外部市场的复苏还是比较明显的。第二点呢，也是说人民币的汇率的一些调整对它有影响。还有一点就是我们的结构性改革。应该说这3个呢，都对我们的这个今年上半年的经济增长或者讲外贸的复苏呢，都有很大的影响。那么集装箱呢，作为这个外贸的一个风向标啊，它基本上呢会滞后外贸那么 3、4个月整个的发展。那么今年上半年的订单呢增长还是非常快的。那么从我们在整个的这个海外投资的发展上来看呢，大的贸易环境并没有发生很本质性的变化。当然，现在更多的可能是一些舆论上的一些表现。那么，当然我们也看到，现在特别在中国一路一带这件事情上，那么我们现在认同的这半年来认同的国家越来越多了。那么对中国感兴趣的国家也越来越多了，愿意支持一路一带的也越来越多了。
So Mr. Sybesma, DSM is actually a Netherlands-based company, and actually I was reading this KOF index from Switzerland. It actually says Netherlands is the most globalized country in 2007. According to that index, it's based on 3 different kinds of metrics. So what is your observations?
Well, as the Netherlands is a very, very small country compared with China and many other countries, we need to be very externally oriented because the foreign territory of the Netherlands is slightly bigger than the internal territory, to be honest. So I think globalization brought a lot of prosperity for many people. Like you said in your introduction, many people were lifted out of poverty. Many people have benefited in the world. However, in Europe and the United States, roughly 30% of the population feels that the globalization has been beneficial for the top 70% and not for the bottom 30% of the population. Whether this is true or not doesn't matter. 30% feels left behind, and those people vote for protectionist political parties. And those protectionist political parties would like to close the borders, would like to come to import duties, protect the own environment, etc., which at the end of the day would not be good for globalization, would not be good for business, would not be good for global trade. We don't see an impact at this very moment, but we need to address this political atmosphere and political feeling in many European and US countries. And I think we need to involve that bottom 30% of the population.
So that the key point is actually some people, 30% of the people, do feel they're lacking behind.
Correct. And in some countries, to be honest, that is also true. In some countries, that is even not true. If I look to the Netherlands, it is almost true that all classes of society has been better off in the last 70 years due to globalization, all classes in society. However, 30% of the population feels that that is not true and that it has not been beneficial for them. And perception is reality, and if they feel it like that, then they vote on protectionist parties. And those protectionist parties would like to Brexit, would like to have United States first, would like to depart from the European Union and those kind of things, which would not be good for all of us in the world, would not be good for China, would not be good for Europe, would not be good for the US, would not be good for the entire population, would not be good for business. However, we need to address that, and we cannot do that by telling them that it has been good for them. We need to involve them in the discussion and the debate, and not just telling and explaining that it was good for them as well.
很睿智的一句话说 ，perception is reality， 就是说我们的这个看法，其实人们的看法其实就是组成了这个现实和现状。So BG, from your company perspective, what is your perception of reality?
Yeah. Again, I concur with what has been discussed in terms of the benefits of globalization. I don't think just because there are challenges which definitely needs to be addressed that we should reverse the trend. There's another key factor which has also created a sense of this kind of fear and perception is the technology disruptions, which has also caused some of the perceptions to have the fear of job losses. And in the context of inclusivity, I think a lot has to be done. One is to make sure that the data points which people refer to as the adverse impact of globalization should be set right. It has to be demystified. On the other hand, the context of disruption which technology has brought in also means that there has to be a significant focus on reskilling and upskilling talent. It is an irreversible trend, whether it's globalization is going to continue at this pace or not, but the fact that the digital disruption has become a very irreversible trend, not only in the developed markets, but also in emerging markets. And we have seen emerging markets, in fact, leapfrog technologies and adapt to newer digital business models. So in this context, there is definitely a lack of awareness across both the politicians as well as the rest of the citizens. So we need to make sure that there is awareness increasing, there is a re-education and reskilling of talent to make sure that these people can participate in this digital revolution and look for opportunities to and embrace digital revolution.
Thank you. 我想问一下黄教授啊，咱们说逆全球化的一些趋势，或者说保护主义正在抬头。那听了刚才3位啊站在一线的这个企业代表他们的答案，您觉得这样的趋势确实是在抬头吗？
我觉得全球化应该说还是在进行吧，但有可能我们进入了一个慢车道，而且甚至出现了一些颠簸啊。这个我们从比如说英国脱欧以及一些国家的这个选举当中，可能已经可以看出来。核心的一个问题就是说，我们都知道全球化，尤其是自由贸易和自由投资，对经济效率提高是有好处的。但它直接带来的一个问题就是，它必然会有结构调整。结构调整就意味着有一些领域会增长很快，但有一些领域会调整。尤其是你没有竞争力、没有比较优势的领域。那么，在我们这个全球化的过程当中，我们得到了这些好处，就是效率的这个改善。但是困难就是有很多人确实感到是受到伤害了。包括刚才你们提到的，就是从感觉当中的这个受到伤害。其实有的时候可能他的收入增长了，但是他的增长没有别人那么快。这个可能就是相对而言，它也是一种这个损失。所以我觉得可能最后的问题其实就是怎么样在这个收入这个共同增长的过程当中，让所有的人都能享受这样的一个好处。这过去几年这个问题变得很突出，其中一个很重要的原因就是因为经济增长减速，这是从全球危机以来复苏的步伐相对比较迟缓。这个会导致的一个结果就是，经济增长很快的时候，每个人都水涨船高，这得到好处。但是增长速度现在一下来，在最下面的这些人就感受到受到的冲击和伤害可能就更大一些。但我同意刚才几位的基本判断，这个全球化还是在往前走，但也许进入了一个慢车道。
So I want to ask Tim. So some call it bumpy road, or like Professor Huang, and some even say that globalization is backtracking. And as a trade expert, what is your observation?
I don't think we're backtracking, but I think what we're doing is taking a bit of a pause and recognizing ways that we need to do some recalibration. So I don't think it's just you're either forward or backward. I think we're looking at new circumstances and figuring out how to move forward. If you look at the U.S. presidential election, a big factor there was the fact that a lot of people thought that globalization wasn't working for them. So I think what we need to be focusing on right now are why do people have these perceptions? And whether or not the perceptions are accurate, I think we also need to think about how we can show that globalization and the activities of companies and of governments can be part of the solution rather than the problem. So in the United States, both political parties realized as a result of our recent election that they had not been paying enough attention to people in the United States who felt that they were being dislocated by trade. This was a mistake made by both political parties, and so both parties have to think about how to address the concerns of the people. As foreign companies investing in the United States, if they can show that they are creating jobs, that they're helping to contribute to an improvement in the standard of living, this will be something that will be part of the solution. Also, another part of the equation is the experience that companies have doing business overseas. And I'm sorry to say that if you look at the American Chamber of Commerce in China, in our most recent business climate survey, 81% of the companies said they feel less welcome here than they did before. They feel that they're not competing on a level playing field. So in order for the companies themselves to be advocating for less protectionism and more open markets in our own markets, they have to feel they're being treated that way in other countries as well.
And Mr. Sybesma, you had something to add.
Well, it is important, I think, to have a look why does 30% of the people in the United States and Europe feel left behind? And I think there are three, maybe there are more factors, but at least three factors are very important. One is unemployment. If you don't have a job, then you feel left behind. You can talk that globalization has been good for everybody, but if you don't have a job, you feel left behind. So unemployment is a thing we need to address, and unemployment cannot be addressed by just giving a job to everybody. Unemployment needs to be addressed by re-education of people, also making them fit for the right jobs. Second thing is accesses in wealth. There's 1% who owns 99% of the wealth in the world. We had, especially in the United States, situation of excessive wealth of CEOs, of other leaders who collected a lot of money. Excessive wealth create a feeling of left behind. And the third element, especially in Europe, playing an important role is migration. If you don't feel at home anymore in your own country, you feel left behind. And I think it is the task of the political leaders, but also the task of CEOs and other leaders to take care of this education unemployment, to take care of the excesses of wealth, and to take care of the effects of migration.
So for
and
excess
if we
of
don't
wealth,
do that,
are you saying, as a CEO and chairman, are you saying a pay cut for yourself?
correct.
Wow.
And we do that in our company to take care that we do not have an excessive income of myself and our senior executives, and that we link the remuneration not only to financial targets, but also to sustainability targets and to connect it to society.
我觉得刚才提到的这个3点都很重要，尤其是这个就业的问题，因为这个开放贸易和投资最后带来的就是结构调整啊，有很多人的收入会快速增长，很可惜有一部分人会失去工作。但我们现在也发现，就是在这个分析的过程当中，我们发现对全球化导致失业这样的一个事情，这个估计可能有很多是夸大的。有很多研究发现，比如说在美国，过去几十年这个制造业这个就业机会一直在下降，这背后的因素很复杂。一方面是因为它本身的成本上升，服务业的这个就业机会增加，所以它必然会导致一个转移。第二个其实很重要的是技术进步在替代很多劳动力。这个和全球化有关，但并不完全是全球化的问题。那么第三个，当然全球化这个经济、这个贸易、这个结构调整。所以我觉得我们在过去讨论这个全球化带来一部分人失去工作的过程当中，我们往往忽视了技术进步导致的结果，其实比这个全球化本身所造成的影响要大得多。
尤其是我们所说的这个突破式的这样的一些技术，站在第4次工业革命的时候，可能全球化有的时候背了一部分这个锅，是吧？
对的。
好，那其实刚才我们已经提到了现在已经有的这个问题，以及它背后可能的是些什么样的因素在影响它。那如果说我们把过去的那个全球化叫做一个传统的全球化，那么现在有一些人说，现在我们可能进入到了一个需要进入到一个新的版本的全球化，不管它是全球化3.0还是全球化4.0，那么大家在每个人的心里面，这样的一个新的版本的全球化，它可能内在的核心究竟需要一些什么样的一些改变？
I think it's important, no matter what the cause of the resistance to globalization, I think we know what the solutions are. The solutions are that we need to focus on employment, and we need to focus on companies themselves feeling that they're able to compete on a level playing field. So I think what this means is that companies need to be much more intelligent than maybe they have been before in the way they approach their investments. They need to think a lot about what impact will this have in the community where I'm investing? How can I demonstrate that I'm adding value here? And then they'll build a support for what they're doing in the communities that they're going to. Also, I think that in countries around the world, we need to be thinking that if we support protectionist policies in our own countries, then we're likely to get a similar reaction in the countries where we're trying to do business overseas. And so I think companies have to rethink their strategies on both of those points.
那王董呢，也是站在这样的一个企业的前线啊，您觉得可能一个新的全球化的形态，它可能会为咱们的商业的模式或者这个全球化的模式带来什么样的改变？
我觉得呢，过去这个刚谈到的一些问题啊，很多呢还不完全是全球化的问题。刚才黄教授也讲了，是很多是深层次的因素，特别是内部的，包括他们的国家的政策呀，还有它的二次分配的政策啊等的税收政策引起的。那么总的而言呢，刚才这位先生也讲到了，就是说整个的这个贸易是相互的。我们现在的年代呢，跟过去不太一样，就不再是那种枪炮年代了。那么整个贸易的这个环境呢，应该说是在西方主导下，或者讲发达国家主导下创造出来的我们现在的规则。现在的规则某种意义上讲，在过去的全球化里头推动呢，发生了很大的这个对全球发生了很大的变化，应该是很大的促进作用。到目前为止，也没有人否认自由化或者讲开放对这种社会财富的这种负面效应。那么我们总体讲，只要是这个开放的社会，对社会财富的创造还是最大的，剩下来是怎么样分配。当然，我们现在提出来这个叫包容性的一些增长，某种意义上呢，就是应该是回应了过去我们贸易体制下出现的一些问题。那么我们自己认为呢，现在特别像我们招商现在的工作，我们更多的在发展中国家进行我们的一些业务的拓展。那么几方面的考虑，一方面呢，确实是发展中国家呢需要我们的这种资本，或者需要我们的一些技术。另外一方面呢，我们在发展中国家呢也更具备有一定的优势。那么第三个呢，也确实是这个发展中国家是一个很大的市场。那么我们的业务呢，基本上是沿着一个这个市场转移的一个方向去走的。所以说总的来看呢，我们招商不管在非洲也好，在南亚也好，或者我们讲在北美也好，整个的投资呢，我们还是和当地的这种发展的或者讲当地的利益或者当地的战略呢结合在一起的，帮助他们去完善他们的基础设施。那么大家把眼光看得更长远一点。那么并不是说我们做一些无私的一些奉献，或者去贡献去帮助他们。那么我们更多的也是从我们自己的商业利益上去考虑的。那么从发展中国家来看呢，可能战略的这个长度或者讲要会更远一点，它的回收期会更大一点，更远一点。当然它的这种收益呢，也更可以讲，因为我们再倒回来看30年前进中国的很多这个发达国家的一些公司，国际化的公司在进中国的实践来看呢，应该都看到这一点。早期进中国的应该是收获都不错的。那么我们也可能在发展中国家呢，他们有个庞大的市场，他们需要我们。那么我们呢，也可以通过找到共同的利益，那么帮助他们。当然，在整个发展中呢，我们应该说还是要兼顾对方的利益。那么如果说不能做到兼顾对方的利益，包括所有的参与方的利益，那么你可能很难会有一个长远的发展。这个某种意义上，现在的状况下，应该都是一个公平交易的一个状况。
那其实我觉得，既然刚才您提到了，就是包括像现在不管是招商局还是中集在全球的这样的一个布局啊，其实我们今天也做了一个很简单的准备，我们其实准备了一个世界地图。我希望我们在大屏幕上能不能把这个世界地图现在放上来一下。其实我们也想就此问一下，其实接着刚才王董的话，就跟我们讲一讲现在比如说当前咱们在这个世界上的布局是什么样的？因为之前我们讲了过去的半年，我们再放眼未来，讲未来的话，咱们准备去到这个世界地图上的哪里？咱们是更多的向内走，还是更多的向外走？更关注哪些区域？
这个整个就是说，我们讲世界这个工业制造业的转移，基本上是十年前就应该开始了。那么我们在上一次全球化的时候，其实形成了基本上一个消费在欧美，这个生产在中国这么一个格局。那么随着这个整个世界贸易格局的变化呢，那么我们自己看呢，就是说，像这些不发达的国家，未来都有可能成为一个比较重要的一个生产地。比如讲南美啊，这个南美可能会成为北美的一个重要生产消费的重要生产地。这个非洲可能会成为欧洲的一个重要生产地。那么南亚可能会成为中国呀或者周边的这种发达国家的一些生产地。那么这种的格局呢，似乎就觉得更合理一点。那么我们呢的整个招商的投资，包括中级的投资呢，基本上也是按照这种的布局来走的。那么我们应该说这10年来看，我们加强了在南美、在南亚、在非洲的一些投资。某种意义上呢，当然这些地方的投资它有一些风险，它有一些政策并不见得这个很好，但是呢，设计好的商业模式，找到共同的利益，那么这个呢是一个投资成功的一个关键。另外一个角度上讲呢，作为一个产业投资呢，可能我们还得看得更长远一点。
And Mr. Sybesma, actually, I got some number from DSM. So back in 2001, reportedly, 48% of the workforce of DSM were based in Netherlands, and the number became 19% in 2016. So I don't know what the number is for 2017, but then it looks like you're a pretty globalized company. It's getting more and more globalized. And then can you tell us where you are in the map right now and where you're going?
Well, can we get the map back?
我们可以再把这个地图放回来一下吗？
Because this map is a very important picture. Because this is not the map that we get at school in Europe. Because in Europe, we look from the other side to the world than from this side. If you look to this map, on the left upper corner, you see a very little piece that is called Europe. And for the rest, you see the rest of the world. In Europe, we were being taught at school the other side of the world. The left part is on the right part, the right
really
part is on the left
tells
part.
perception is the reality.
Exactly.
Right?
And the map we get in Europe at school, Europe is exactly in the middle of the world, and it is much bigger. So this is very important in terms of globalization, because I show this map to our people in our company to give the perception the world is slightly bigger than only the Netherlands or only Europe. And this is exactly the topic I think we need to understand and to learn. We need to work together in the world with all the different pieces, and you cannot be in splendid isolation. Therefore, this map is important, but most Europeans will say, is this the world? We are being taught a totally different world. And the only way to be successful in the world, and I'm changing a little bit the old-fashioned win-win model of Harvard. I win and I let you win also. I think the good model of collaboration is I let you win and most likely I will win also afterwards. The Marshall help of the United States after the Second World War in Europe was I let you win and most likely I get something back. And the short-termism of today is inhibiting that. Everybody is thinking first instance about the self-interest. And you cannot develop a world with global trade if everybody only thinks about self-interest. So I would like to change that to I let you win and most likely I will win later on then also.
Great. 所以转动一下这个地球一样，会学到别人的这样的一个视角。So spin the globe, and then you actually learn from others' perspective, and then come back to that question. So where we are right now and where we're going for DSM.
DSM is globalizing, and indeed we have our Chinese president is sitting there. I think we have 6,000-7,000 people here in China. So China is already bigger for us than the origin, being the Netherlands. And that is the way it should be, because we are the largest food ingredient manufacturer in the world. And it is not only true that people in the Netherlands eat fortune love. All kinds of people in the world eat and need to eat our ingredients. So we need to be on the whole world, like other companies are now active in the Netherlands also. So we will internationalize in our innovation, in our manufacturing, in our sales force around the world.
Great, thank you. And for PCCW's case?
We have currently, as a Hong Kong again, just like Netherlands, is a limited market, but we are market leaders in our core businesses in Hong Kong. 80% of our global business comes out of Hong Kong, and our aspiration is to extend our footprint outside of Hong Kong. At the same time, if you look at our workforce, about 35% of our workforce is outside Hong Kong. We have about 50 nationalities working for PCCW as a group. We also have a global connectivity business where we are present in all the 5 continents, including Africa, Middle East, US, and Europe. We are increasingly putting our efforts to expand our footprint in mainland China, where we have 6,000 employees, and we are expanding that. We are also looking at Southeast Asia, both for our technology services business and our media business, the video streaming business under the brand name of View. So that's definitely a focus, Southeast Asia, mainland China. We are also looking at expanding our IT services footprint in Europe and US, and that could be through a strategic investment we would make. So definitely we want to make sure that our capabilities which emerge from Hong Kong can be leveraged in other parts of Asia and Europe, US as well.
我想问一下旁边的黄教授啊，我觉得刚才3位的商界领袖从这样的一个世界版图上来看，其实感觉大家都是目光向外，而且是信心满满的，觉得很坚定全球化这条路会继续的走下去。但是呢，当前大家也说了，问题确实是存在的。所以说，在您看来啊，包括习近平主席在很多的场合下多次提到了这样的一个包容性全球化，但是呢，可能他在过去确实增大了一些地方，大家不管是实际上的差距，还是一个心理上的差距。那么这个包容性的全球化究竟可以达成吗？在您看来？
我觉得这个过去我们的全球化没有让每个人都获益，其中一个很重要的原因就是其实政府功能缺位。其实在这个市场化也好，或者全球化也好，市场可以帮助我们提高资源配置的效率，但有一些事情它做不到，比如说收入再分配。所以刚才提到的有30%的人没有真正获得这个好处，一个很重要的原因就是公共政策没有到位。那我觉得这个包容性这个全球化一个很重要的内容就是一方面还是要推进这个全球化，让市场机制发挥这个根本性的作用，同时另外一个方面政府要跟上，就是要支持那些可能由于全球化导致这个失去了工作或者收入增长就放慢。这个我觉得应该是政府的工作，也应该是这个包容性这个增长的全球化的一个很重要的这个内容。但从现在看，我们这个全球化，我觉得可能也真正出现一个很明显的拐点，就是你看我们过去大概从2战以来，或者尤其是从70年代以来，全球化这样的一个过程，基本上是欧美国家主导的。我们中国比如说在过去改革期间得到了好处，其实享受的也是发达国家相对比较开放的一个市场，投资也好，贸易也好，中国的高速的对外的出口和对内的直接投资的这个进来，这个导致了我们的经济的高速增长。现在我们看到的发达国家的这个全球化确实出现了一些波折，一方面是因为它的内部的结构调整问题带来一些这个困难，另外一方面它确实是它的这个增长速度放慢，这个对全球经济增长的这个推动力量减少。那么最后一个，我觉得客观的来说，发达国家确实它的开放程度已经非常高了。所以假如说我们要继续推动这个全球化，它的新的动能必然是会来自于新兴市场国家。这个和刚才王总说的，无论是拉丁美洲、南亚这个还是非洲，未来我觉得新兴市场国家要发挥更大的这个作用。这个无论是从对增长的贡献，还是开放可能带来新的这个好处，我觉得这都是值得期待的。
那我再追问一下，比如说我们看到中国这样一个巨大的经济体，当前我们的经济可能更多的从过去出口型为导向或者投资型为导向的，更多的转向服务还有消费为导向的。那对于未来的全球化的这样的一个格局，会带来一些什么样的变化？
我觉得第一是中国是一个大国经济，所以它不等同于一个小国经济。我们并不是说这个对内对外不完全是一个对立的一个问题。我们一方面还要进一步推动全球化，但同时我们国内地区经济之间的合作仍然有非常广阔的这个前景。但从另外一个方面来说，我们还是有很多机会。你举个例子说，我们过去经济增长主要就是这个2大引擎，一个是投资，一个是出口，对吧？我们出口了很多劳动密集型的制造业，我们也进口了很多大宗商品，比如说铁矿砂。这是我们在全球引起关注和加深合作的一个很重要的具体表现。未来的经济结构在转型，我们的出口要升级，我们的投资质量要更高。但其实中国未来一个很重要的功能，会向全世界提供一个14亿人的消费品的市场，这个仍然可以成为一个全球化的一个很重要的内容。
MBG, you had something to add?
Yeah, I think today there's a lot of problems which get ascribed to globalization. I think it's very important to make the distinction. Let us assume from tomorrow every country shuts shops on globalization. The fundamental problems of job shifts, technology disruptions, which will continue to impact, automation, which is going to continue to impact. So the problems of unemployment, skill problems is not going to vanish. Second, and as was mentioned earlier, the economic divide between the rich and the poor will continue to increase if that problem in its own measure is not addressed. And that is not due to globalization. I think it's important to make these distinctions, otherwise every problem could be subscribed under the broader umbrella of globalization, and we forget to address the basic issues within each country to address the challenges where this economic shifts, the fourth industrialization revolution is going through.
And to add on to that, as a business leader, we know that currently globalization is facing a lot of backlash. We have populism, we have challenges in terms of disruptive technology, there's also refugee crisis, and there could also be energy crisis, and also there could also be damage environmentally. So from your perspective, what do you think would be the most challenging factor?
The most challenging factor in today's context is to get some kind of a common agreement on some of these measures. I think Europe has done a lot to gather such momentum on creating sustainable growth. Even KPIs of CEOs are not just focused on the financial metrics. There's also a significant portion ascribed to creating sustainable growth. It's a very clear example of a collaborative effort by the European Union to bring certain standards. It's unfortunate that on the environment, US has decided to go its own way, but rest of the world has signed up. If we can come to such agreements on a global basis that there are certain key benchmarks, there are certain measures which is beneficial to everyone, then there is a much more common platform created for collaboration. And if we are able to get that, then individual countries can then look at addressing some of these specific challenges within their countries.
And Mr. Sybesma, what would you think would be the most challenging aspect, and what would you do as a business leader to rebuild that kind of a trust between the wider society and industry?
You mentioned the word yourself. I think the most important challenge has to do with trust. The most important challenge has to do with leadership. Because what's happening at this moment is that people feel uncertain. People feel they cannot trust the system, they cannot trust the politician, they cannot trust the business leaders. And what do people do then? They put their anchors there, and they put their anchors firm, and they want to go back to history. They don't want to have any progressive insights, and they block any progress. And that is a logical human behavior. Now, the only way to make progress and to let the boat sailing is to lift the anchors. When you have your anchors there, the boat will not move very fast, and not very far at least. So you need to lift your anchors. But in order to lift your anchors, you need to have trust. And if you don't have trust, nobody, not any human being, would lift their anchors. And therefore, I think the most important challenge is leadership. If you look to Europe, you mentioned Europe made a lot of progress. Yes, but at this moment, many European countries are withdrawing a little bit from the so-called European project on their own island because they feel they don't trust it anymore. I mean, look, in this forum, we talk about China being the second largest economy in the world, United States being the largest economy of the world. It's not true. Europe is by far the largest economy in the world. But we in Europe do not know it even ourselves, so why should the world know it? So here you see that we have a lot of progress to be made. And by the way, the same counts for the One Belt, One Road initiative. Also the One Belt, One Road initiative, I think, which is a great initiative of President Xi, but it will only succeed, in my humble opinion, if we include all the different regions in that project and let them also shape. In Europe, we are still looking a little bit like, what will One Belt, One Road bring for us? We don't know, and we need to be further invited in the shaping and be inclusive, and then it can be a great success.
Yeah, I think that the next Belt and Road conference is actually in 2 years' time, so welcome to China again.
Thank you.
Actually, you probably come more often than that.
Correct.
想问一下旁边的王总啊，也是作为这样的一位企业的领袖，其实刚才我们谈到的，对于当前全球化所面临的种种的挑战，如果让您挑一个，您认为最大的挑战是哪一个方面？同时怎么样去应对它？
我呢，因为不像他们这个比较高屋建瓴啊，我们主要干具体实际工作的。 那我觉得最大的一点就是我们在一些发展中国家的投资怎么样能够形成可行，这是我最关心的一件事情。那么首先一个就是讲战略的选择，就是我们哪个国家在哪个国家做投资，做什么样类型的投资，做什么样的业务，这个和我们的这个核心能力要结合起来，怎么样和对方找到共同的利益点。第二个呢是我们要怎么样能够设计好我们的商业模式，因为这个整个的国际上的要素价格是不一样的，每个地方都不一样。中国成功的案例呢，到那边可能就不能成功，所以整个商业模式的设计呢，变成是一个非常重要的。那么要让我们的投资者能够接受，让我们的债权人能够接受。那么因为招商局呢，90%以上的资产都是证券化了，所以说呢，我们是一个比较市场化的一个公司。第三个点呢，就是在对这些发展中国家，我们怎么样有效的和我们的收益和风险要匹配起来。这我是考虑的一些比较微观的一些层面。那么
非常务实的一个答案。
那么这些呢，其实我们讲这个第三世界发展中国家有很好的发展前景，但是也不排除它的不确定性，它的政治风险啊，它的其他的风险啊，它社会稳定风险啊等等，这些我们都要通过我们的这种商业模式来隔离这种风险。我们要取得这样达到共赢的情况下呢，是不是一件容易的事？对每一件事情其实都是个挑战。
我觉得有些非常具体的这个方法论，也非常感谢王总的分享。And then I want to ask Tim, because you were involved in so many trade negotiations, and from your experience, do you think there's such a new model for globalization that could work for all, which means inclusive and sustainable?
I don't think we're seeing yet from the United States a clear vision of what their view is on this. I think there's a focus on bilateral agreements, but I think, frankly, that so far we haven't seen a lot of direction coming from the United States in terms of how we can solve the sort of issues that we've been talking about. What I've heard from the panel today is very thoughtful comments on what the challenges are and things that we need to be focused on. I very much agree with the comments of all the panelists. And I think all of us in our different roles, whether we're in corporations, whether we're government officials, whether we're academics, I think there are all ways that we can be trying to contribute to solving these problems. Sort of in the spirit of that, let me just mention one other thing that hasn't been mentioned. When you put the map up of the world, one possible inhibiting factor for globalization that we haven't really talked about yet is national security. And this is particularly relevant when we talk about the digital age and when we talk about the Internet of Things and when we talk about the global digital economy. More and more companies and more of our progress in the future will come through free flows of data across borders. And right now, countries have very legitimate national security concerns, and individuals have very legitimate data privacy concerns, and that's another issue that we have to have on our list, because if we want the world to be integrated, we have to allow for the flows of data in ways that will work for the countries to preserve their legitimate national security concerns and also the legitimate privacy concerns of individuals. So I'll just put that on our list of things to be thinking about also.
好的。那最后呢，我也想问一下黄教授啊，也曾很简短的总结一下，咱们说的全球化，其实它可能意味着政治上的、经济上的、社会上的，甚至是心理上的全球化。咱们怎么样可以全方位的达到这样的一个包容性的增长、包容性的全球化？
我觉得还是应该所有的国家一起工作，政府、企业、社会一起来共同合作。我们前面说到了怎么样帮助那些没有从全球化当中得到足够的好处的这些群体，但其实我们过去也是在全球化的过程当中，有很多发展中国家没有介入进来。以后我觉得他们也许会成为这个新的开放和全球化的一个主导力量，但这并不意味着以后我们就不跟发达国家一起开放。我相信发达国家仍然会是全球化一个很重要的推动力量，但一个根本性的改变，过去举个例子说，有很多重要的全球经济决策是由7国集团来做的，未来更多的是20国集团，或者是发展中国家自己的各种经济合作的平台组织。举个例子说， 金砖集团这个国家的这个组织，或者是这个我们“一带一路”的组织，核心的一点就是新兴市场国家在推动未来的全球化的过程当中，要发挥更大的作用。
好的，我觉得也是很好的今天全场的一个总结啊，我觉得大家也可以给在座的所有的嘉宾一些掌声的这个鼓励。其实我们刚才谈到，通过过去这么几十年的这个全球化的发展，目前呢，像所有的嘉宾所说，它可能遇到了一些阻力，它遇到了一些调整，需要重新出发。那可能在这样的一个过程当中呢，其实需要国家之间的、企业之间的，我们重建这样的一种信心，需要强有力的领导力，需要地区之间的合作。有的时候呢，我们也需要转动一下地球仪，学着从别人的角度去思考一下这样的一个问题。我们需要更多的关心所有的人，需要关心那些可能曾经我们遗忘掉的一些群体，给他们更多的关爱，可能给他们更多具体的培训。同时，在像我们企业领袖所提到的，在具体的执行的时候，我们需要一些真正的专业的方法论，才可能在更长的时间里面，让我们的全球化走得更好，真正的能够达到这样的一个包容性的增长。因为只有包容性的增长，才可能是可持续的一个增长。那所以说，再次感谢今天所有的嘉宾们带给我们这样的一个非常虽然说简短，但是非常精彩的一个分享。也感谢所有观众朋友们的参与。同时呢，我还要提醒大家，我们这一期的对话节目呢，会在7月2号的晚上。9点50分，咱们 CCTV 央视财经频道就会播出。So actually the show will be broadcasted on the 2nd of July. As the evening, so 9:50 p.m. So that's CCTV Business Channel, which is CCTV 2. So stay tuned. And thank you everyone for making this a very insightful and very interactive session. 感谢。